The topic of my talk is an introduction to diverse musical tradition in Iran. It's an extensive subject, and I will concentrate on some significant regional traditions. After a brief introduction of Persian classical music, I will talk about song poetry in different regions of Iran and will explore some ceremonial uses of the instruments, and will conclude with music in the context of entertainment. Some of the material that I'm going to use here comes from my own archives and fieldworks. Others are mostly recordings published by Mahur Institute of Culture and Art, the most prolific publisher of Iran's classical and regional music, which I'm using with their permission. Iran is a vast country, the second largest nation in the Middle East, with over 78 million inhabitants. It is a multi-ethnic and multilingual nation with very rich and diverse musical traditions. On one hand, we have Persian classical music, also called musiqi sunnati, traditional, or musiqi dastgahi, referring to the 7 principal modes. And the other hand, we have regional musical tradition called musiqi nawahi, regional, or musiqi maqami, music using melody types. Here, the term maqam should not be confused with the Arabic and Turkish meaning of the word, which covers a wider concept of mode. Here, it's used as a melody. Persian classical music has been cultivated in the center of Iranian plateau, in the important cultural and political centers such as Qazvin, I cannot see very well here, Qazvin, Isfahan, Shiraz, and Tehran. Other ethnic groups, such as the Turkic-speaking peoples, Kurds, Baluchis, and Arabs, live mostly on the border areas and have their own musical practices. As you can see on the map, on the west, we have Azeri Turks in the province of Azerbaijan, Kurds in the Kurdistan and north of Khorasan, Turkmen in the east of Caspian Sea, Baluchi in southeast, and Arabs along the Persian Gulf. Indeed, their music shares many common features with the music of the same ethnic groups living outside of Iranian borders. Moreover, many performers are bilingual and multilingual. Intensive fieldwork has been carried out in only a few of Iran's many regions. My fieldwork for the past 3 decades has been principally on the musical tradition of Khorasan in northwestern Iran, here. My PhD thesis was about the repertoire of Khorasani bards or singer of tales called Bakhshi. I came to know the music of Khorasan in the late 1970s when I was a teenager in Iran. The first time I heard a performance of a Bakhshi was during a concert which took place at Shiraz Art Festival, an important artistic event held for 2 weeks in the summer in the city of Shiraz, here in the southwest. Indeed, in the 1970s, to collect and preserve regional musical traditions, National Iranian Radio and Television, with the initiative of Mrs. Fawzieh Majd, a composer and a musicologist, financed various expeditions all over the country in order to record regional musics. Some of the great musicians of these traditions were identified and then invited to the Shiraz Art Festival. This is how my generation came to know the richness of Iran's diverse musical traditions. Let's talk about song poetry that is central in Iran. Song poetry has long been appreciated in Iran, and musicians were often poets and vice versa. The tradition of poet-singers is very old in Iran. In pre-Islamic time, from the Parthian period, 247 BC to 224 AD, and then under the Sassanid, 3rd to 7th century, existed a tradition of bards or singer of tales called Khorasan, which in Pahlavi, the old Iranian language, means minstrel. They played an important role in the life of Parthian and Sasanian. Barbad, here depicted in an early 16th century miniature, was the famous court musician of the Sasanian king Khosrow II Parviz. As you can see in the picture, he's playing the lute called barbat, which is believed to be the ancestor of the short-neck lute oud, a prominent musical instrument throughout the Middle East. There are many affinities between languages and musical styles. Throughout centuries, Persian poetry had been extended beyond Iran to other areas where Persian was used as a spoken and written language, such as Afghanistan and Tajikistan, but also Turkey and part of the Indian subcontinent, where Persian was used as a literary language for centuries. Persian poets such as Ferdowsi, 10th century, Nizami, 12th century, Rumi and Sa'di, 13th century, and Hafiz, 14th century, are still performed in a variety of ways in all these areas. Persian poets celebrated music and dance and often used instruments as a metaphors for human feelings, as in the famous songs of the reed flute from the opening of Rumi's Masnavi, بشنو از نی چون حکایت می‌کند از جدایی‌ها شکایت می‌کند. Hear the reed flute, how it does complain and how it tells of separation's pain. The performance of Persian poetry is at the heart of Persian classical music. Persian classical music, as we know it today, is derived from the 19th century court practice. It is based on 7 principal musical modes called dastgah, meaning system, and 5 secondary modes called avaz. You can see on the screen the names of the dastgahs and avaz. Each dastgah and avaz is comprised of short pieces or unit called gushe, literally corner. A series of gushe arranged in a fixed order is called radif, meaning row or order. Each musician and teacher has his own version of the radif, usually names after them. We have, for example, radif of Mirza Abdullah, radif of Sabah, etc. However, they have a great deal in common. The radif is a corpus of pedagogical material and provides the framework for improvisation and composition, and is the central resource for singing Persian poetry. The most typical configuration of the performance of Persian classical music consists of a male or a female singer accompanied by one or more instruments, as it is depicted in Persian miniature painting from the 13th century onward. In this picture, you can see some of the principal instruments of Persian classical music performed by some of the most prominent instrumentalists. As you can see from the left, you have the trapezoidal hammer zitar called santur, the long neck lute tar, the spike fiddle kamanche, the rim blue flute ney, and the goblet-shaped drum called zarb or tombak. Other instruments, such as the long neck lute with a pear-shaped resonator, setar, the short neck lute, oud, and the frame drums, daf and daire, are also found. We are going to hear Parisa, one of the most prominent contemporary female singers of Persian classical music. She will sing lines from Divan-e-Shams, one of the Rumi's masterpieces in the Dastgah Mahur, who sounds like a Western major scale. She is accompanied on the tombak by her son Ali Rahimi and Imam Waziri on the tar.
پیش من جز سخن شهد و شکر هیچ مگو سخن رنج مگو جز سخن گنج مگو سخن رنج مگو جز سخن گنج مگو برزین بی خبری برزین بی خبری رنج و مبر هیچ مگو
Variant of some of the instruments of classical Persian music can also be found in regional traditions. For example, the Azeri tar, called tar Qafqazi or tar Turki, has a smaller body than Iranian tar. It has 22 frets or parde rather than 25 frets and have 5 or 6 additional sympathetic drawn strings. As you can see on the picture, it is held against the player's upper chest instead of resting on the thigh. This picture shows a typical Azerbaijani classical music ensemble, which include the framed drum, qaval, the tar, and the kamanche. The qaval player is also always the singer. Furthermore, each language spoken in Iran has its own genres of song poetry and its own accompanying musical instrument. One of the important genres of song poetry is the narrative genre. Narrative genre is performed by professional and semi-professional musicians who are skilled musicians with a large repertoire, such as Khorasani Bakhshi and Turkmen Bakhshi, Azerbaijani Asher, Baluchi Sha'ir or Pahlevan, Kurdish Beychi, and Persian Naqal. The repertoire includes narratives and stories with subjects that can range from epic and heroic deeds to romances or mystical religious tales. These narratives are almost always named after their heroes. Performances often combine song poetry and spoken prose. In the past, these musicians were often part of the ruler's retinue, be it a king or a khan. They were responsible for praising the ruler, his prowess in battle, his family, and his horse. For example, Shah Ismail, the founder of the Safavid dynasty, who ruled from 1501 to 1524, appreciated the music of the Ashq so much that he learned to perform it himself and even composed songs about Shia Islam after he declared Iran to be a Shia nation. The socio-political changes of the first of the 20th century and the replacement of the ruler's power by the rule of local government officials modified the status of musicians. The patronage of a ruler was no longer available to them, and they had to supplement their income with other types of work. For example, in northern Khorasan, many Bakhshi works today as farmer, gardener, barber, etc. Life cycle celebrations such as circumcisions and weddings have always been an important venue for the performance of these narratives. However, these musicians usually do not perform for dancing. The repertoire is mainly intended for listening. Performance may extend over several evenings. Music for dancing is provided by another category of musicians that we will talk about later. Usually the musicians who specialize in the narrative genre rely on printed books, manuscripts, and notebooks, kitabche, to master the repertoire of narratives and poems. For example, in northern Khorasan, the Bakhshi has its own notebook in which the text and poems are written down. Some of these have been handed down through generations from father or master to son or disciple. Others are written down by the Bakhshi himself. And indeed, the Bakhshi's kitabche are one of the most valued possessions which must remain in the family. On the other hand, the vocal and instrumental skills and the repertoire of melody types are transmitted orally from a master to the pupil, a process which can take several years. This is similar to the transmission of Persian classical music. For example, a Naqal who sing and recite the epic Shahnameh, Book of King of Ferdowsi, can spend more than 10 years with a master to learn the repertoire, which contain more than 48,000 distichs or couplets. The most elaborated narrative repertoires are those of the Khorasani Bakhshi, Turkmen Bakhshi, and the Azerbaijani Ashq. The Khorasani Bakhshi and the Turkmen Bakhshi, bards or singers of tales, are the most prominent figures in the northern Khorasan and in Turkmen musical culture. Roshan Golafrouz, that you can see here, is an example of Khorasani Bakhshi. He is a singer, a poet, a storyteller, and an instrumentalist who accompanies himself on the long neck lute dotar, meaning two chords, two strings. Sometimes the Bakhshi makes his own instrument. The two strings of the dotar is struck with the fingers of the right hand, as you will see in the video. While the Khorasani Bakhshi sings in Persian, Khorasani Turkish, and Kurmanji Kurdish, the languages of the three ethnic groups which have been cohabiting in the region for centuries, the Turkmen Bakhshi sings only in Turkmen. The most important genre of Bakhshi's repertoire is the Turkish narrative called dastan, a Persian word for story or tale. The subject of dastan fall into three main categories: romances, heroic tales, mystical and religious tales. Many of these dastan are commonly found in a wide area stretching from Central Asia to Turkey. At certain moment in the prose narrative told in Persian, Khorasani Turkish, or Kurmanji Kurdish, depending on the audience, protagonists are moved to sing sequences of quatrain in Khorasani Turkish. For example, lovers talk to each other, or one of the protagonists pray to God for assistance. Let's now watch a video which was recorded in 2005. It's an excerpt from Dastan Shah Ismail wa Gulzar Khanum, performed by Bakhshi Roshan Golafrouz from Mallabaqir, a village of northern Khorasan. Roshan is the son of the late Bakhshi Hamrah Golafrouz, who performed in Shiraz Art Festival in the late 70s. The story falls into the romance category and narrates the imaginary romantic adventures of a historical figure, the Safavid Shah Ismail II, and his love for Gulzar Khanum, the daughter of an Armenian merchant. The story begins with a typical scenario of a king, here Shah Tahmaz, who is childless and seeks divine help. At the beginning of the clip, Roshan introduces himself and then traces his family's musical lineage through 12 generations, praising them and explaining that his dotar was his grandfather's Ali Akbar Bakhshi, which he inherited. Then he tells the story before singing. He uses the traditional formula to begin his tale. اما راویان اخبار و ناقلان اسرار و توتیان شیرین شکر و شیرین گفتار همچنین روایت کردند. And now the spreaders of news, narrators of secrets, and the eloquent parrots with enjoyable speech report that.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم. بنده روشن گلافروز هستم، فرزند استاد و زنده یاد همراه گلافروز، نویره بخشی بزرگ و پیشکسوت بزرگ در شمال خراسان، شاخه گلیان علی اکبر بخشی، معروف که تمام بخشی‌های شمال خراسان این استاد بزرگ رو میشناختن. دو تاری هم که در دست من اسمار پدر بزرگم ارث برای من مونده که از پدرم برای من مونده، 3 پشت و 12 نسل در گلیان، روستای گلیان از نواحی شهرستان شیران که ما داریم بخشیگری و هنرمندی میکنیم از برای مردم و کشورمون. الان سرگذشت یک عاشق معشوق، داستان یک عاشق معشوق رو به اسم شاه اسماعیل عرض بکنم و این داستان را صحبت بکنم و شراشم میگم. اما راویان اخبار و ناقلان آزاد و توتیان شکر شکر و شیرین گفتار روایت میکنه در یکی از شهرهای ایران پادشاهی به اسم شاه تماس خداوند تبارک و تعالی ثروت فراوان، سلطان، سلاطین، پادشاه مملکتی، اما خداوند تبارک و تعالی از فرزند این سلطان را ناامیدش کرده. سلطان با کمال، سلطان با عدالت، سلطان با سخاوت، مسلمون، شبی از شبها دست به درگاه پروردگار عالم بلند کرد. آی خدا، تو که دریای سخاوتی، تو که دریای شجاعتی، تو که دریای مروتی، چرا از این میوه دنیایی که فرزند منو ناامید کردی؟ این سلطان با هم امشب رو بذار بره بخوابه، فکری ناراحت. سید نورانی رسید به سربخت شاه تماس. آی قبله عالم، اگر یا توفسن اویا، اگر اویاخسن هوشیار، حرکت کن. خداوند تبارک و تعالی مراد مطلبت را برآورده کرده. سلطان از خواب بیدار شد، دست به درگاه پروردگار عالم بلند کرد. آی خدا، خدای امید سرگردان لقال برده اما سرش دست دوتم علم در اشتها گرده که مگه دردم اظهار کردم بگیز دستم درمان هیجان همه تردم بیر دردم و طلا گرده ای امان امان.
Oops, sorry. Let's now turn to the Turkmen Bakshi. In this picture, as you can see, the Turkmen Bakshi, dressed here in their traditional costume, is often accompanied by the qeychak, the Turkmen kamanche, the spike fiddle. A distinctive feature of the Turkmen Bakshi is his vocal technique, called juk-juk, a variety of acoustic effects which have often been compared to the sounds found in the Bakshi's shamanic heritage. The Bakshi Verdi Wajdani, whom I interviewed, explained, quote, "Usually people ask me, why do you produce these sounds? It depends on the poem and the melody. If a poem is sad, the juk-juk has to show the state of grief and anguish of the Bakshi. If the poem is an epic, the juk-juk has to be modified to show that state. If it's mystical, a Bakshi should lament at the feet of God to convey the feeling." Now we are going to listen to an excerpt of the story of Yusef and Ahmad, known among the Turkmen, but not in Khorasan. The dotar player is also always the singer. You can hear the vocal technique that we just talked about.
Volta meydan yolun açarlar Batır atın nedir komoşe Kare yere kıdını imkanın saçarlar Şah üstüne gelen nedir komoşe
Now I want to talk about Azerbaijani Ashq. The Iranian province of Azerbaijan is separated by the salty lake of Urumiyeh into western and eastern Azerbaijan. Though recognized as Azerbaijani, their local dialects are noticeably different, and their music has different characteristics. In western Azerbaijan, the Ashq, plural Ashqlar, like the Khorasani Bakshi, is a solo performer who accompanies himself on the saz, a generic term for any musical instruments. It is a long-neck lute with 9 strings grouped in triple courses. The strings are plucked with a plectrum. As you can see in the picture, the resonator, throat, and the neck of the instrument are often highly ornamented with gazelle horn, camel bone, and mother of pearl. Ashq Khan, who you see in the picture, is one of the most prominent ashq of the region. He has his own qahvekhane, literally meaning coffee house, although most customers drink tea. In Azerbaijan and northern Khorasan, from the 17th century up to the 1979 revolution, the coffee houses played a central role in the diffusion and preservation of these traditions. The coffee house was also an important venue for the performance of the Persian epic Shahnameh of Ferdowsi by the Naqal. When an asher performs, he's always standing. In the coffee house, he usually walks up and down the aisles between the tables and chairs. A famous tradition in the art of ashaqlar is what is called de'eshima, a type of poetic musical debate between two asher who improvise. According to tradition, the loser should give his instrument to the winner and leave the job. The same tradition exists among Khorasani and Turkmen Bakhshi. The Khorasani Bakhshi that I interviewed remember competition in which the loser had to give his dotar to the winner and shave his own head. The late great Bakhshi from Khorasan, Muhammad Hossein Yegane, once told me that a famous Turkmen Bakhshi wanted to buy his dotar for a very good price, but he couldn't sell it because then, quote, everybody would think that I lost to him. It would shame me. In eastern Azerbaijan, the ashaqlar performs by himself when he sings, but is joined during the instrumental interlude by a balaban and a qaval. A balaban, also called narmeney or mey, or known as duduk in the Republic of Azerbaijan, is a cylindrical oboe played with circular breathing, a technique used by players of some wind instruments to produce a continuous tone without interruption. Because the balaban's sound is loud, it is played only when the asher is not singing. In the recording, you can hear its piercing sound. The example that we are going to hear is a de'eshima that we just mentioned, performed by two asher from eastern Azerbaijan, accompanied by a balaban and a qaval. It's an excerpt from the epic Koroglu, the name of the hero of the most widespread epic among various people of Central Asia and beyond, Azerbaijani, Kurds, Georgian, Armenian.
Ata ölməmişəm. Özüm gedib gətirirəm.
Oğul, bəs bir dayan, bir neçə kəlmə keşkolu havası ilə qulaq as. Deyirəm, belə başına mən dolanım, belə mehriban oğlu. Getmə oğlu, getmə yax şəhərə, sən ölürəm, ay budum, ay bala. Ey, belə təzəcə tapmışam, ey, belə qəndiləm oğlu. Getmə oğlu, getmə yax şəhərə, sən azarım, aman, 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 ay aman. Getmə oğlu, getmə, ah şəhərə sana. Ay qadanalı, başına mən dolanım, mehriban oğul. Getmə oğul, getmə Ağ şəhərə sən. Tazaca tapmışam qəndilən oğul, getmə oğul, getmə Ağ şəhərə sən.
Ata icazə ver, sənin öz havabla cavabın rədd edib.
Now we're going to talk about music in the context of ritual and the ceremonial uses of instruments. The spiritual assemblies of some Sufi orders have long provided a favorable environment for the cultivation of poetry and music and the channel for the preservation and diffusion of these arts. The term zikr, literally meaning the remembrance of God, applies to both a short formula, for example, La ilaha illallah, there is no God but Allah, and to the entire ritual session. Each Sufi order has its own ways of performing zikr, which can include recitation from the Quran, prayers, and singing, sometimes accompanied by a musical instrument. In certain orders, song poetry is accompanied by the framed drum daf or by the long neck lute, tambur, or dotar. Zikr can also be performed silently, as in the Naqshbandi order. Group performances are coordinated by a religious leader and usually last several hours. Depending on the tradition, the devotees can stand, sit, or dance in a circle or lines. The framed drum daf is the sacred instrument of the Qadiriya order in Kurdistan. The Qadiriya is one of the most important Sufi brotherhoods among Sunni Kurds and probably the most popular Sufi order in the Muslim world. Their zikr ceremony, coordinated by the religious leader Khalife, is held in the Khanaqah, a Sufi lodge or a Sufi meeting place. It includes recitations from the Quran, prayers, and singing accompanied by the daf. Women do not attend but hold their own ceremony to which men are not admitted. Each Qadiriya zikr is composed of two distinct sections, zikr neshaste, meaning seated, and zikr qiyam, meaning standing. Participants are first seated and meditate, then stand and sing as they move rhythmically to the sound of the daf. Qadiriya daf, as you can see in the picture, is very large. Its distinctive feature is its 4 rows of metal rings in the interior face, which you cannot see, which according to some correspond to the 101 attributes of God. Sometimes the skin of the daf is decorated with elegant calligraphy of Quranic verses, like the daf of Khaja Mirza Agha Ghosi, who is in the picture, and whom we are going to hear accompanied by other participants. He has been the Khalife or religious leader of the Khanaqah of Sanandaj, the regional capital of the province of Kurdistan, for more than 40 years. The language he uses is Sorani Kurdish, one of the main languages of Kurdistan, which belongs to the southwestern branch of Iranian languages. I want to talk about the Ahl-e Haqq order, the sacred instrument of the Khorasan or Ahl-e order in southern Kurdistan and Lorestan is the long-neck lute tambur. The Ahl-e doctrine, a heterodox sect, has been influenced by ancient Mesopotamian and Iranian religions, as well as by Islamic mystical orders. Music constitutes a central part of Ahl-e liturgy and spiritual life, and all the religious leaders are musicians. In their spiritual assembly or jam, the tambur accompanies the singing of sacred texts called kalam. The group sit in a circle. The women and children are allowed to attend a jam, but they stand outside of the circle. Let's now listen to Ustad Amir Hayati show in the picture one of the most prominent tambur player from Sahneh in Kermanshah in southern Kurdistan. His tambur called Nida al-Haqq, or the voice of the Lord, has a sound box considerably larger than the other tamburs. Tamburs has 3 strings struck with the finger of the right hand, like the Khorasani dotar. He is going to perform a maqam called tarz. There is a legend about this maqam. According to the sacred and oral narratives, when God created Adam, the soul refused to enter Adam's body because it was worried about man's future and destiny. The Lord commanded Gabriel to play maqam tarz on the tambur so that the soul become intoxicated and cheerful in order to enter Adam's body and begin its mission.
کرم کر یا حق و میل همان کرم کر یا سر قدرت یا دانای داور یا مشکل گشای حشر گشا کر یا مشکل گشای اکثر گشای کرد یا سلمان و چنگ شیران رها کرد
Let's now talk about the ceremonial use of the dotar in eastern Khorasan. In eastern Khorasan, in the Turbat-e-Jam region, the dotar is played in the Sufi ceremony of the Mujaddidi branch of the Naqshbandi order, established in the region in the early 19th century. Turbat-e-Jam is related both historically and culturally to the Herat region of Afghanistan, which was formerly part of eastern Iran and an important cultural center in the 15th and 16th centuries. Turbat-e-Jam takes its name from the Turbat, meaning tomb, of Sheikh Ahmad Jam, the great 12th century Sufi writer and poet of eastern Khorasan, whose tomb is in the city. Many musicians of the Turbat-e-Jam region trace their lineage to the musician in Herat. They are Sunni Muslim, forming the only Persian-speaking Sunni minorities in Iran. Music plays an important role in their rituals, which are conducted in private homes rather than in a khanaqah, a Sufi lodge. The ceremony is normally performed in a circle called Halqe Zikr, the circle of Zikr, with everyone seated on the floor. The video that we are going to watch is an extract of a poem called Munajat Musa, Prayer of Moses, performed by the great singer and instrumentalist of Eastern Khorasan, Nur Mohammad Dorpur, who died recently in March 2015. I took this video in 2012 at his son's house in Yadegar near Torbat. Here he sings and plays the dotar. But in Eastern Khorasan, unlike the Northern Khorasan, usually a separate dotar player accompanies the singer. The dotar of Eastern Khorasan has a much larger resonator at the longer neck than the dotar of Northern Khorasan and the Turkmen. Munajat Musa, that we are going to hear, is a poem that may also be performed in Halqe Zikr. Musicians attribute this poem to the 13th century Persian poet and mystic Attar. The poem is not by Attar, but the theme is derived from Attar's poetic work, Elahi Nameh, the Book of God. It is the story of Moses' request to God, حکایت درخواست موسی از خداوند.
یکی روز حق میخواست و های جاد که یارب از فضل الهی خاصان خود با ما نمای.
Now let's discuss another ceremonial ritual, which is a kind of music therapy. One of the important musical traditions in Baluchistan and the southern coastal regions of Iran is the healing ceremony called Gwati or Qalandari in Baluchistan, Nuban and Zar in the Gulf region. Nuban and Zar are the major Afro-Arab musical ritual of possession and healing and can be found in some area of the Arabian Peninsula, such as southern Iraq, the remaining Gulf countries, and Yemen. In this culture, it is believed that evil spirits can take possession of a person and make him or her physically or mentally ill. These evil spirits are known as Bad, meaning wind in Persian, and each has a name and personal characteristics. In order to drive away this evil spirit, a ceremony takes place which can last for several days. The ceremony is preceded by officiants called Baba and Mama in the Gulf region and Khalifa or Usta in the Gwati ceremony of Baluchistan. Music plays the most important part in these ceremonies. Appropriate melodies as songs have to be performed until one pleases the spirit responsible for patient's illness. Then the melody is repeated continuously as the spirit takes full possession of the sick person. Meanwhile, the agitated patient shakes as if getting rid of the evil spirit. During the ceremony, the spirit may speak, which can be in different languages or dialects. In the Zar, Arabic, and Swahili, the lingua franca of much of Southeast Africa, in Gwati, Arabic, Urdu, Hindi, or Baluchi. Sometimes the performers themselves are unable to tell the meaning of some of the words. The Gwati ritual called le'eb, from Arabic la'ab, meaning play, is found only in the central and southern area of Iranian Baluchistan, such as Iran Shahr and Char Bahar. It is an elaborated genre that can be performed only by skilled instrumentalists. The principal instrument of the Baluchi Gwati ceremony are the surud, double-chested fiddle, and doneli, double-end blow flute. Surud is always accompanied by the long-necked lute tambire, which act as a rhythmic drum. Other instruments such as the doholak, double-sided drum, or the banjo, kid zither, may also join the ceremony as the people clap or sing. The piece that we are going to hear is part of the Gwati repertoire performed on doneli and doholak. The Baluchi doneli, as you can see on the picture, is a double pipe flute related to those of the Indian subcontinent. One of the pipe is called male and the other female. The male plays the melody while the female produces an appropriate drum. It is performed by Shir Muhammad Espandar that you can see in the picture, one of the most prominent doneli player of the region. Now we are going to listen to another important Gwati pieces called Simor. Simor, the most important mythical bird in Iran, is gifted with a powerful mystical character. In the Iranian epic tradition, it is the giant bird that rescues and brings up Zal, whom the king, his father, had abandoned because he was born completely white. In Sufi literature, it symbolizes the human soul in search of the spiritual world, as in Mantiqote, the Conference of Birds of Attar. The myth of Simor is an important aspect of the Gwati ceremony. Here it is performed on the surud. The surud, also called qaychak, is a double-chested fiddle made of a single piece of wood. The lower section of the sound box, as you can see, is covered with a skin. It has 4 melodic strings and 4 to 10 sympathetic strings. It is accompanied by the long neck lute tambire. Let's now talk about the music for entertainment, dancing, and other life cycle celebrations. In many of these traditions, there are specific songs related to life cycle celebrations, such as birth, circumcisions, songs related to wedding ceremonies, or melodies played at funerals. They can be performed with or without musical instruments. In Baluchistan, for example, when a child is born, the mother's relatives gather in the mother's room and sings an unaccompanied song called chaptaki. The ceremony can last from 6 to 7 nights, depending on the financial situation of the family. It is performed by 2 groups of singers who alternate singing verses and refrains. The text is devoted to the praise of God, saints, and great religious figures. Usually, the musicians who provide music for dancing are professional musicians who live mostly from their music. This is one of the reasons that they have a lower social status than semi-professional or amateur musicians. In Iran, as in the other parts of the Middle East, music as a profession was limited to the marginal members of society and was mostly practiced by minorities, such as the Jewish and Armenian communities. Expert amateur musicians have a higher social status than that of the professional, such as the motreb, urban entertainers. For example, among the Bakhtiari tribes, one of the 2 biggest tribes in Iran, musicians who provide music for dancing are called tushmal. They are held in a low esteem by the Bakhtiari, who describe them commonly as qurbati, homeless people. In northern Khorasan, the music for dancing is provided by the asher. The asher should not be confused with the asher of Azerbaijan, a poet-singer that I mentioned earlier in the context of narratives. Khorasani ashers are often associated with the Kurds, who used to have a nomadic background. An asher ensemble consists of 2 men. One plays a dohol, a double-headed drum. The other may play a sorna, a kind of oboe, a qoshme, a double clarinet, a kamanche, spike fiddle, or a violin. Male dancers, sometimes dressed as women, and acrobats can become part of the performance. In many traditions, the combination of sorna and dohol has long been associated with wedding celebration and festive occasions. Sorna, a Persian word meaning festive path, is a sort of oboe. Often it's simply called saz, meaning instrument. It is widely distributed from the Middle East, North Africa, to Eastern Europe under various closely related names, sorna, surna, zorna, etc. Let's watch a video of asher in Sabzebar in the west of Mashhad playing a dohol and sorna that I filmed in 2002. In the video, one of the asher explained that he is going to play the melody called balaban or kurogli. Balaban literally means of the top of the roof, not to be confused with the wind instrument balaban that we heard earlier. He explained in the video that playing a dohol and the sorna on the roof was a traditional way to invite people to a wedding. Another asher explained that in the past, neither cards nor the telephone was used to spread the news. This melody is also played during a kushti, a wrestling match. The playing technique of sorna involves continuous circular breathing. The sorna players, as you can see in the film, uses his cheeks as an air reservoir. This is accomplished by breathing in through the nose while simultaneously pushing out the air through the mouth using the air stored in the cheeks. When dohol accompanies the sorna, the skins are struck with wooden sticks. When it accompanies other instruments, it is played with the hand.
بالا بام و کلاغه یکیه. بالا بام اولش میزنیم بعد کلاغه میشه. هر دوش یک معناش چیه؟ بالا پشت بام هم میزنیم. برای کشتی هم همینا رو میزنیم.
بالا بام. چرا میگن بهش بالا بام؟
به خاطر که همین موقع روز میرفتن بالا پشت بام آهنگی بالا بام میزدن،
مهمونا رو دعوت میکردن.
مهمونا رو دعوت میکردن که بشنون اینجا عروسی میشه
بیان خودشون. اون موقع نامه که نمی‌نوشتن، کارت نمی‌فرستادن.
تلفن نبود.
همین
زیاده بودن نمی‌رسیدن.
A wedding celebration has different stages: the proposal, خواستگاری, the engagement, نامزدی, celebration prior to the wedding party, and the actual wedding. Most of these stages require professional musicians. Let's watch a video from northern Khorasan, a celebration known as Shirin Khoran, meaning sweet eating, which comes after the engagement. It's when gifts are sent to the girl's home by the man's family and may include a large tray of candied sugar, shawls, a ring, and perhaps other gifts. This ceremony is always accompanied with music. Here the dohol and the qoshme, the double clarinet. Then the party and dancing by the guests, both men and women, continue both inside the bride's house and outside in the street, as you will see in the video. The dances called bazi, literally means play, have different names. Ye qarse, do qarse, se qarse, shish qarse. The word qarse in Kurmanji Kurdish means snapping one's hand, beshkan. 1, 1, 2, 2, etc. The tempo gradually accelerates from ye qarse to shish qarse. They dance in a circle without holding hands, with appropriate steps and hand movements. The qoshme that you can see in the picture is the double clarinet, usually made from eagle or crane bones. In Kurdistan, Azerbaijan, and Lorestan, similar double clarinet are made of reeds and are called dozele, meaning two reeds. You see the tray that going there. To conclude, I shall say that during the last 3 decades or more, technology has become part of musical life in rural areas. As a result, in most villages in contemporary Iran, traditional instruments are played along with amplified electronic keyboards, which are also used to perform traditional regional tunes. As I have personally witnessed, in many families of traditional musicians, at least one member, usually the youngest son, now uses an electronic instrument, most commonly a keyboard, rather than a traditional instrument. Moreover, most of these traditions are now performed in concerts and festivals, not in their original context. Today, the music of different regions of Iran is regarded as Iran cultural heritage. In order to display this heritage over the past 3 decades, both the Music Division of Ministry of Culture and Islamic Guidance, مرکز موسیقی وزارت فرهنگ و ارشاد اسلامی, and the Arts Division of the Islamic Propaganda Organization, حوزه هنری تبلیغات اسلامی, the two major organizations that deal with music, have sponsored festivals and concerts in the capital city as well as in most of the provinces. The most important of these is the Fajr festival, which makes the anniversary of the 1979 revolution. This official interest also came from a propaganda campaign launched in the early 1990s by Ayatollah Khamenei, the guide of the Republic, against cultural aggression from the West. He conferred a certain legitimacy on Iranian music, both classical and of different ethnic groups, to affirm Iran's national identity. The participation of these musicians in festivals both in Iran and abroad is one factor that has raised the status of musicians in general. Despite all the difficulties that we know about the government control of music, the prohibition of women singing in front of a male audience, and the political cancellation of concerts at the last moment, musical life in contemporary Iran is flourishing, whether authorized or not. Most of the repertoire of the great master of the past and regional musical tradition has been published. In the 1980s and 1990s, the first complete survey of Iranian instruments was carried out by Mohammad Reza Darvishi, a composer and researcher. Two of his multi-volume encyclopedia of instruments are already published. But the control and prohibition of musical performance remains a live issue. Thank you.